There's no more chances for the CDL teams as week 3 of stage 2 has come to a close. Our groups are locked in for those standings heading into the major, and it was a wild week. I'm your host, Katie Bedford, joined by Enable and Pacman. And Enable, I don't know how you knew, but you predicted that Minnesota was going to come out on top of Group B, and you were right.
It's just something I do. I just get a feeling, Katie. I knew that they were going to come out on top. The impossible is possible when I'm predicting. So
that was a good guess. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little bit impressed with Ian for the first time ever. So yeah.
Let's see how that worked out. Let's take a look at some of the results from week 3. OpTic, after going 0-6 in map count and 0-2 in their series last week, came back and won both of their matches this week. Perhaps the surprise outcome of the week, though, Gorillas 3-2ing Atlanta FaZe to hand them their first ever series loss on the year. Some other notable outcomes: Paris taking down Florida, Minnesota continuing to look solid, as do the New York Subliners. And well, how does that play out for the group standings? As we mentioned earlier, look at Group B, Minnesota on top, followed by OpTic and then Dallas. OpTic managing to beat Dallas 3-2 in that final series of the week. Group A, Atlanta still on top with a 4-1 record. New York right behind them. And unfortunately, Thieves sitting at the very bottom of Group A, and Florida Mutineers finding themselves at the bottom of Group B. But guys, I want to talk about OpTic to round this out, to start this off. OpTic looked good. They looked horrible last week. And clearly, I think you guys had mentioned, Enable, that, hey, maybe get up for those morning scrims, maybe, do what you need to do to put that practice in. And they looked pretty solid, especially in that win against Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, they did exactly what they needed to do, right? Every team goes through this, a period where you're slumping, things aren't going well, and you really need to show your resiliency, how you bounce back. And they did that. They all played great this week. They got a huge win over Empire, which, it was a very good series. And I was kind of surprised that they played that well, especially Scump and Dashy. But this is what they needed. I think now they're going to be on that upward trend again. They got through the rough patch. And who knows, maybe, they'll get a first major win.
I want to commend them because I feel like their rough patch was super short. When that happens, usually it takes a little bit more time. But I mean, we can look back at it now and say that was just a bad couple days. That's all that was.
Right.
And they're back to being the OpTic that we know and love, right? They 3-0'd a Surge team that was on the way up, beat Dallas. They took care of business, did what they needed to do, and they looked good doing it, right? That team is so full of talent, like Ian was talking about last week, right? And it looked like they came together during the week and worked on their teamwork, which is the most important aspect of the game now, especially with all the teams in the league having so much talent. OpTic being back on the same page, at least what it looks like for the time being, super important.
And you mentioned Pacman Scump, right? Having a great performance, especially against Dallas. And, maybe you can make the argument that they're trying a little bit harder because it's Dallas, but he played really well. And something that he actually tweeted after those series I'd like to talk about. He said, and I quote, "I thought I lost my mojo." When you guys look at a quote like that from someone like Scump, do you ever feel like there was a point for you, and Pacman, I'll start with you, when you felt kind of like, you were at that ending stage as a player?
Honestly, not really as a player. I think the only time I ever felt like that was actually Advanced Warfare, where I would go into tournaments like, we're going to get bodied. Like, that's the only time where I felt I didn't feel confident in myself and my team and whatever it was. And it's not a great feeling. And for someone like Scump, who's comparing my career and Scump's career, it's not even close. Like, he's a legend of the game, top tier SMG player. When he says something like that, it's got to be like he doesn't feel like he's the best sub in the world anymore. He doesn't feel like he's that guy anymore with all these new crack kids sliding around. And it probably felt good to just remind himself that, I'm Scump, you know what I mean? Like, I'm that guy still. And usually
I'm the king.
Yeah, I'm the king, right? Usually, like, for me, I don't know how it was for you, and I can't speak on the end, but usually it's like you're not in a position where you feel comfortable with the team you're going to be on. You don't want to regress too far. You don't want to go play back in challenger scene or the AM scene anymore. You don't want to try to climb this ladder that you already climbed before and start all the way at the bottom. That's usually what makes you stop, at least for me. And I don't think Scump's going through that. Obviously, he's part of OpTic, but just that mental hurdle to get over is really tough. So I'm happy for him.
I think for me, I definitely felt like that at a certain point, especially in what was it, Modern Warfare. But it's like when you compete for such a long time, it gets very repetitive. It can become stale. And my situation was kind of like how John explained, where I wasn't comfortable on the team I was on. I didn't want to go through challengers and try to reprove myself. And other opportunities came up, and it was just something new to try. For Seth, he doesn't have to worry about going back to challengers, but yeah, he's one of the greatest Call of Duty players of all time. And I think for him, with the I lost my mojo, like I thought I lost it, he has so much going for him, right? He's been an original content creator in the scene. He's he's the biggest Call of Duty player in the league. But so he doesn't necessarily have to compete. And he has been doing it for longer than damn near anyone else, especially playing at the top level. So I think it's just like he brought it up before of like, maybe I'm gonna retire. Like maybe he just doesn't want to deal with the stress of competing when he can be successful doing a bunch of other things. He's already made his career, his legacy. He has enough money to kind of do whatever he wants. But so I think for him, it just comes down to him having fun and wanting to get on every day and not feeling like it's a job where he can't have fun. But he said that a couple times. So it definitely feels good to see him kind of get his mojo back, because you don't ever want to see a player like him retire, even though he's been doing it for a long time now.
Well, yeah, and it'll happen at some point, but to prove to yourself, hey, like, I don't need to do that, I'm sure is a great feeling for him. And again, against a team like Dallas, obviously there's going to be a little bit of that kind of friendly rivalry with Grim. Dallas beat them earlier in the year, so you want to be able to answer back. And those series, at least to me, are the best series we see all year so far, is when OpTic and Dallas play each other. But I do want to touch, because both of those teams are in Group B. When we went into this week, Ian, there was 11 different scenarios for how everything could play out in Group B. 11 of them. OpTic could have somehow ended up in first or sixth in the group. And they're going to settle in at second place, but Minnesota first. So, and you predicted it, but how sure were you that Minnesota was actually going to end up first?
100% confident. I was 100% confident. I thought there was a good chance just because of the honeymoon period, basically. I thought that with Standy, they looked so good, especially after those first two matches versus OpTic and Empire. But I know that they would have had to have gotten a bunch of luck from other teams to actually get first. But like I said, sometimes you just get a feeling, Katie. I just had a feeling. It just came to me.
What about those bottom teams? I mean, I didn't think Florida necessarily would be sixth. Not that I thought they'd be in the top three, but sixth, Pacman, they're
it's
not having a good time.
No, and also Group B was just really tough. They went 2-3, and I think we all would agree that if they were in Group A, I don't think we see them finishing sixth, right? It's just right, the way the group shaked out. Like, it's just tough. I mean, it sucks that they went out and lost to Paris like that, but that's the Paris we see where it's like randomly they're nasty. Nicky D was running around doing whatever he wanted again, and it's like, what? We don't know where to put these guys, and unfortunately for Florida, they got the brunt of that aggression, right? Like, that's that's just tough. So that now they're at the bottom and they have to battle all the way through the bottom of the losers bracket. Group B was just, I think that's the craziest group that I've ever seen in the history of watching games. Just that group was nuts. How that turned out. How Seattle ended up in losers, and like, it was super close, super competitive all the way out, and that's the things you love to see as a Call of Duty fan. That was amazing.
Do you like that format right now of how they're deciding on these groups as opposed to years prior?
Well, obviously it has its ups and downs, right? Because the reason why the groups are so imbalanced is because of where LA Thieves was picked. Like, they didn't pick correctly, so the teams themselves messed up their own groups. They made their group much stronger than they needed to, and I don't really mind it. I think in general, seeding is probably the way you should do it, but it ends up working out the same way. All it does is add that factor of, we actually think that you're a lot worse than whatever the hell your standing is, so we're gonna keep you guys with us. But I mean, it's about the same thing.
I like it though, because in the past, right, there's always teams would complain when it's drawn like, you luck, like, we got the hardest group, your group is easy. But now if you say that, it's like, well, it's your own damn fault, because you're the one who picked this team in this group or not. So I think it just adds like another dynamic, and I enjoy it. But yeah, it's like, if teams kind of misjudge where certain teams are actually at, like where they're playing at, you'll see this where one group is just completely lopsided. But I guess at the end of the day, that's just like name of the game.
All right, so I want to talk about probably the most exciting series for me in the week. We need to talk about FaZe. They lost their first series against Gorillas of all teams, but I mean, I suppose in a way that does kind of make sense. And then they bounced back later and got a 3-0 win on London at the end of that week. So they went 1-1 in their series. But do you think there's cracks, or do you think there's kind of some more information behind what happened to make it a little more understandable that they lost?
No cracks on FaZe. It's honestly, like you kind of said, I expected them to lose, maybe not to LAG, but a team like LAGA, a bottom tier team. That's no disrespect to LAG, but when you're in the league, it's like any sport, right? Any given Sunday, that quote, any team can beat any team in this league at least once. And trap games are a real thing. Like, FaZe probably underestimated LAG going in that series. They probably woke up that day, didn't go as hard in practice before, maybe didn't eat breakfast. I don't know, but they were probably so confident that there was no way they were going to lose. And they got, punched in the face a little bit of a wake up call. But I don't think it's any cracks. You showed they bounced back, looked dominant versus London. It's just one of those things. You can't win them all. You're going to have an off day. It is what it is. But the fact that they were able to bounce back and look as good as they did versus London, I think that proved to me that there's nothing to worry about, at least for the foreseeable future with them.
Yeah, the fact that they had another match after was huge. Like, I feel like I might think a little bit differently had they lost the last match going into it, but because they bounced back and had that 3-0 and looked so strong they looked like the FaZe that we always see. I mean, obviously, if you actually watch that FaZe series, they did not play well against LAG. Like, that was the worst I've seen them play ever.
Teamwork was sloppy.
Teamwork was sloppy. Everything was just off. It was off. And it feels like we're kind of disrespecting LAG in the sense, but it just is what it is. They did not play that well, and then they got beat down. Like, LAG took care of business. They did what they had to do. 6-0'd them in the last map. That's how you know, obviously, it was uncharacteristic. They're the best search team in the game, and they got
didn't win a round.
And they didn't win a round, right? Like that's an uncharacteristic loss. But if you're a FaZe fan, I don't think you have much to worry about. That bounce back was right there, and then I'm sure they're going to go into the actual major, and they're not going to sleep through anything. They're not going to underestimate anyone. They're going to play their maps. Like, this is going back to business, so I don't think you have anything to worry about if you're a FaZe fan.
Another team, so FaZe 3-0'd them, and I want to talk about them. London. So Pollex comes in, Zed comes in. Zed was promoted to the starting lineup. Not sure everything going on with Alex, but Zed will be stepping in full time for him. And unfortunately, Zero stuck, I think, in the visa blender enable. But London, they got 3-0'd Toronto. FaZe. They had a rough week. Honeymoon over, or just working out the kinks?
That's a good question, Katie. It's a good question because I feel like Pollex has helped improve London from where they were at, but they have kind of regressed. It looked really good in the beginning with him. I think he instantly became the best player on their team, in my opinion. And I don't, it's a mix of the honeymoon being over, because when you have a new team and you win, you're playing these good series, everyone feels good. And you start losing a little bit, the vibes come down. So it's definitely over. It was a short-lived honeymoon, but I think they could be a very solid team. I think middle of the pack, in that 5th, 6th area, I wouldn't be surprised, but I still feel like they're just like one piece away from really making that move. So it's too early to tell for me at this point.
I kind of agree with you. I mean, they obviously regress. What happens is in the honeymoon phase, you come in, Pollex joins, everyone's hyped, and all you do is get on and play. Zed wasn't even supposed to play. Alex, remember, Zed surprisingly had to step in for Alex. You don't go over stuff when that happens. You get on, you scrim, you kind of like, okay, whatever that happens, our first time playing, and you get on and play, and there's less talking. Then once you're a team and you're established, then you start kind of nitpicking at the little things, like we have to do this better, this better, this better, this better, this better, this better, because this is our team now. And then that's when things start to fall apart. But also that is when you become stronger as a team. It just takes a little bit more time. The honeymoon phase is just that. It's not real. That's fake news. After that time, though, after they get that chemistry, then you get to actually see. I think that they're going to struggle through this major. I don't think they have enough time. But after that, if they do stick together, I do think that we're going to see a stronger Ravens team than we're seeing right now. I do have faith in them. I do believe that Dylan's been playing a lot better since Zed joined the team. I don't know how that helps him, the chemistry of Zed just pushing things out for him, allowing Dylan to become a better, more consistent player. But I think that bodes well for their future and more consistency out of Pollex, who came in playing super hot. And I do feel like London has a chance here to actually improve, like we saw Seattle improve throughout this stage.
I want to talk about Asim because he had some losses in his family this week, and he came out despite everything that was happening in his personal life and had a good series against Florida. He came out and performed with the team. They won. What is it like in that moment? Have you had a similar moment? What do you look at when you see someone going through that and still come out in a series, perform, get the job done, and then express after the fact, like, hey, here's what was happening behind the scenes with me?
I've never had anything like that happen to me before the game, so I can't really speak on that. When you're dealing with anything like that, I think the game can actually be helpful. It can be a release, right? Just do what you do and do what you love, and just be grateful for the position that you're in. And then afterwards, you can let out all that emotion. And I think that's what he did. And he's just been playing really fantastic this whole season, and I'm proud of him for what he's able to accomplish again, given those like horrible circumstances.
I personally know Asim. I'm really good friends with him. He's one of the most genuine players in the league, and it has to be tough. I don't know if I've ever dealt with, going like, because he tweeted out that he was literally at the funeral the same day, and he rushed home and played. But I have had, loss, like say like a week before an event. And I think what John said is you kind of use it as a release, like able to block everything else out and just kind of do what you love doing. And I think that helps a lot, even though it might have been a little stressful because it was the same day. He was probably rushing back and forth. He played fantastic, even with the circumstance. He's been playing great, like John said. And I think it's just one of those, it's like the extra push. I'm sure he's very close with his family members, and he wants to make them proud. That's why he laid it all out on the line, especially in that series. Looked great. I think now it's just about him kind of staying in this mindset. I don't want to go too far deep into this, but like I feel like when you are grieving, doing something like this, something that you love, can actually help a lot. I hope he is okay and he keeps continuing his performances.
Of course, we send our thoughts out to Asim and the rest of his family, and I have full faith that he's going to keep kicking ass the rest of the season. He's been playing so well. But that means it's time for some fun topics, guys. MVPs, LVPs, and I know that Pacman threw these back on me last week, but I'm going to start with you.
Starting with me.
Yes.
With me.
Yes, she is.
Spotlight on you.
Why don't we? No, I'm playing. Okay. I'm gonna go with Silly. I feel like he played really well. We talked about FaZe not playing their best and whatever, and then playing a weaker LAT without Kenny. He played really well. Dropped double digits in the surge to bring them that win over LA Thieves. Played a really consistent weekend, and I'm big on, if you suck, I'm gonna say that you're sucking. But if you're doing well, you're doing what you need to do, you gotta say that too. And I feel like Silly did a great job and really helped put the team on his back to get them these 2 wins over this last weekend. I'm gonna go with Silly.
I stole my pick, but it's okay. My MVP of the week, it's gotta be Dashy. He did exactly what I thought he was gonna do, especially after playing horrible the previous week. He came out, he played fantastic versus Florida. He had a 1.32 KD versus Dallas, which is both wins were huge for them as a team. But I think more importantly, it was just the fact that he had such a bad week and he gained that confidence again. He looked great. He looked fantastic. And it was honestly shocking to see him perform as badly as he did last week. He looked like Dashy of old. He's got to be the MVP for me. Helped OpTic get into the winner's bracket spot for the major and kind of just get back on track. So
there you go. Your MVPs, Dashy and Silly. We'll see if Silly can keep up that momentum, maybe make something happen for Gorillas. And on that point, moments of the week. Maybe it was something from Gorillas and FaZe. Maybe it was something else. But Enable, I'll start with you this time. Your moment of the week. What comes to mind?
My moment, it's got to be the OpTic Empire series, the map 5, when it was Scump and I believe Shotzi in the 1v1. Now at that point, OpTic was already they almost had the game wrapped up then too, but moments like that where Scump was in a 1-on-1, Shotzi had the first shots on him and he was still able to win that 1v1 and just kind of clutch up, really secure the game, essentially, in my opinion. But it was a bigger moment for what we talked about on Scump saying he thought he lost his mojo. A win like that, even though it's just one round, is one gunfight, that sort of thing could really change a player's mindset and give them the confidence that they need moving forward. So I think that was the moment of the week, just because Scump's going to be a beast at this major. And when he is, because it's just a feeling I got, it's because of that one gunfight versus Shotzi in map 5 to help secure the win for OpTic.
And a bit of a revenge after the control, right? It came down to a 1v1 that he lost.
Exactly.
Which was my moment, Katie.
No, come on.
Pacman, take it away. What's your moment?
Which was my moment, Katie. It had to be that control, because it also does lead into that, right? So he lost this 1v1 versus Illy before, and then he goes back later and clutches up. Like, this making up for it. I mean, it's not your fault when you lose a 1v1 in control. That's not what I'm saying, but everyone's watching. This is a moment when everyone's watching. So you can make whatever decision you want. He takes his time, and then it looked to us at first like he got first shot and then lost the fight, but everyone's like, no. Illy got first shot. It's just really close. Just how online COD works. But that was a crazy moment. It was honestly, control sometimes it's hard to really sit and enjoy all of it, but that one was amazing to watch top to bottom. So that would be my moment of the week. And then, of course, Seth bounces back and they win the series and get that winner's bracket spot.
He's trying to piggyback off my moment of the week, Katie. You can't double dip.
I will say, at least, not to get too deep into it, it did seem like Dallas's wins were much more difficult in that series than OpTic's wins. When OpTic won a map, they won the map. Dallas kind of scraped tooth and nail to lock down that series. But good nonetheless, and that's why our moments of the week will come from OpTic and Dallas, which leads into LVPs. If you're not sure what that is, that's the least valuable player of the week. So unfortunately, they have to go to someone. I said Slasher last week, and now that we've come to a close week 3, who's your LVP?
My LVP, this is weird. Hear me out. I'm going to go with Illy. Why? Because he's supposed to be the guru. He's supposed to be the mastermind. We're talking about a championship team. They're not going to be a championship team if they can't beat other good teams in Search and Destroy. This is supposed to be the guy, right? I don't know how their team works on the inside. I would be lying to you if I said I did. All I know is he's supposed to be the Wonderkin mastermind, S&D overlord god himself. I expect more from him in that mode. I expect more from him out of his team. I expect them to be a top S&D team up there with FaZe. I don't know what I'm seeing, and I'm not liking it. And Illy's got nothing but praise, which he's deserved since he joined. But come on.
That was okay. I got my LVP now, too. It's got to be Octane for me. Here's the reason why. It's not even, he wasn't playing horrible. I don't think he was like one of the worst players. He was probably one of the worst players this past week, but Seattle was up 2-0 versus Minnesota. They got reversed. If they win that series, they're in winner's bracket for this major. And I just don't think in that series, Sam played up to his potential. Like, Pristini looked fantastic in that series. He's actually looked fantastic for like the past week, 2 weeks now, but that was a series that could have changed the future for Seattle. Who knows if they start in winner's bracket? I don't know what seed they would have had necessarily, but Sam just needs to be that superstar AR again for me, and he's not doing it quite yet. So hopefully he hears this and then he turns around.
I'm gonna go ahead and just pick my LVP before Pacman can force me to, and I'm gonna cheat on this a bit. I think it was a Beezy. But whichever FaZe player failed in that assassination on the control on Checkmate against
she's
London,
taking the easy way out.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if you're gonna go for the assassination attempt, at least make sure that you can do it. It was sloppy. It was sloppy, that's all I was saying. The next show we'll have for you, the next reverse sweep review, will be of the major, how all of these teams play out. Maybe some more FaZe assassinations on the way, but that'll be it for us. Week 3 is done and over. Enable Pacman, thank you for your insights, guys. And next time you see us after the major, I'm sure we will have a lot to talk about.